All right, so today we're diving into something that's, well, it's not just another smart chatbot. This is different. We're talking about a personal AI assistant called OpenClaw, and the whole idea is that it works for you, 24/7, even when you're sleeping. Okay, so to really wrap your head around what OpenClaw is, you got to understand this key difference. You know ChatGPT, right? It's reactive. You go to it, you ask a question, it gives you an answer, end of story. But an AI agent like OpenClaw, that's proactive. It's got a memory, it's always on, and it actually starts doing things for you on its own. It's a total game changer. And listen, this isn't some tiny little project tucked away in the corner of the internet. No way. The hype around this it's huge. OpenClaw absolutely exploded on GitHub, racking up over 65,000 stars in what felt like no time at all. And for those of you who don't follow GitHub, that kind of number that fast, it's a massive signal from the developer community that something really, really big is happening here. And the backstory here is actually pretty wild, even down to the name. So it originally started as Claudebot. Makes sense, right? But yeah, Anthropic's lawyers who make the Claude AI came knocking pretty fast. So they had to change it. For a little while, it was called Moltbot, which, let's be real, doesn't exactly scream powerful AI assistant. Thankfully, they landed on a much, much cooler final name, OpenClaw. Okay, so let's get into the weeds a bit. What is an AI agent really? What makes this thing tick? And why is it so different from what we're used to?
Most of the AI tools we use today are like a website or an app. They're a destination. You have a problem, you go to ChatGPT, you go to Claude. OpenClaw? It completely flips that script. It's an assistant that lives somewhere else, on a server, and it's always on, always ready to act. So it's not an AI you go to for help, it's an AI that works for you in the background.
And how does it do this? Well, it's all built on three core pillars. First, it has a brain and a memory, right? So it's not starting from scratch every time. It actually remembers things. Second, it's always on. It's constantly running, looking for things to do. And third, and this is the big one, it has tools and can take actions. It can actually plug into your digital life, your email, your calendar, you name it. And this is where it stops being abstract and gets super practical. I love this example from one of the users. They said their gym makes you register for classes exactly 24 hours beforehand, and the popular ones fill up instantly. So what do? They just have their OpenClaw agent watch the schedule and automatically sign them up the second it's available. It's about automating all those tiny, annoying little bits of life admin that drive us crazy. So you might be wondering, okay, how does this actually work under the hood? It's got to be super complex, right? Well, not really. The core concept is surprisingly simple, and that's exactly what makes it so powerful. It really comes down to a simple three-step loop. First, you install what's called a skill. Just think of it like an app or a plugin that lets OpenClaw talk to something else, like your Gmail. Step 2, you create a job. That's just you giving it an instruction, like, hey, every morning at 8 a.m., summarize my urgent emails. And then finally, you just get the result. It'll deliver that summary right to you, maybe as a message on Telegram. Simple as that. Now, to get this all set up, you basically need three main ingredients. First, you need a place for it to live, right? Since it has to run 24/7, that's usually a small, cheap cloud server. Second, it needs a brain. This is where you plug in an AI model like GPT-4 or Claude. And third, you need a way to talk to it and get updates. And for that, people usually use a simple messaging app like Telegram. Okay, but we gotta pump the brakes for a second. With all this power comes, well, a lot of responsibility. Giving an AI this much control over your digital life is a huge deal. This is not a toy. And that means we have to have a serious talk about the two big elephants in the room, security and cost. So there are two massive things you have to keep front and center. First up is security. And let's be blunt, you are letting an autonomous AI rifle through your personal files and run commands on your computer. That is a huge, huge deal. And second, there's the cost. Yeah, the OpenClaw software itself is free, but the server it lives on isn't, and you're paying for every single API call, every time that AI thinks. And this is precisely why setting up what are called guardrails isn't just a good idea, it is absolutely non-negotiable. It should be the very first thing you do. We're talking about setting simple, firm rules for your agent. Things like, hey, you are never to delete a file without my explicit permission. Or if a task fails 3 times in a row, just stop and tell me about it. These rules are what stand between you and a potentially very, very bad day. So what about the cost? Well, this is where you have to get clever. You wouldn't use a giant, expensive sledgehammer to crack a tiny nut, right? Same idea here. It's a feature called smart routing. For the simple everyday stuff, like just checking for new emails, you tell it to use a cheap, fast AI model. But then, when it needs to do some heavy lifting, some real complex thinking, it automatically switches to a more powerful and, yeah, more expensive model. It's a brilliant way to keep costs under control.
Okay, so let's zoom out. When you put all these pieces together, what does it all mean? What does this tell us about where things are heading?
Look, the big takeaway here is that we're witnessing a fundamental shift in how we interact with AI. We are literally moving from a world where AI is a passive tool, something that just sits there waiting for us to give it a command, to a world where AI is a proactive partner, an assistant that's working alongside you around the clock, thinking ahead and actually taking initiative. And the wildest part? This isn't some far-off sci-fi future. This is here. You can do this right now. So I'll leave you with this thought to chew on. If you had your own personal AI agent, all set up and ready for its first job, what's the very first annoying, tedious task you would give it and say, you handle this